Hello and welcome to the Daisy's Live show. This has been a wonderful week for all of us here in the Bay Area, slightly sunny and beautiful as always. Today's a little cloudy, but we have a lot of hikers out there having a fun time. Of course, the maskless mandate came in from CDC, and if you are vaccinated, which I'm sure you are, you can go out maskless. And if you are vaccinated, you can even go in maskless. But having said that, if you are not vaccinated, please walk into your nearest pharmacy, CVS or Walgreens, and get yourself vaccinated. What are you waiting for? Vaccinations are essential. Do it because it's your civic duty. Do it because you care for your health and you also care for the health of your neighbors and friends. Vaccinations are your civic duty. Please get yourself vaccinated against COVID-19. It is essential. Now, we're here with some really interesting people, and we're going to have a super fun conversation. We're here with the fans of a very popular television serial that shows on Star Plus. Since we don't get Star Plus here in North America, we watch it on Hotstar USA and Hotstar Canada. And this show is called Shaurya or Anokhi Ki Kahani. And we're here with some fans who have dialed in all the way from India. And we're going to have another fun conversation this week. Of course, we're going to get a lowdown of the story. And then, of course, as usual, like every week, we're going to pick up one social topic and have a discussion around why this topic is important for these ladies. So, you know why we picked this up? Because daily soaps in India have stereotyped the image of the good Indian girl. And one thing that always really has fascinated us here in North America has been that, the real good Indian girl always wears Indian clothes. The bad Indian girl does not wear Indian clothes, she wears Western clothes. For some reason, that stereotype has stayed with us, and it's so stereotypical that it's almost funny for us. It's not something that we really identify with anymore. The real good Indian girl speaks fluent Hindi. So if you're not a real good Indian girl, you don't speak your mother language. She cooks scrumptious food. She carries a no makeup face. She's shy to the core. So if you're not shy, you're not a good girl. So these stereotypes are so prevalent in Indian daily soaps that for some reason, if you are outspoken and you're not that character that the Indian soaps portray, somehow you're not acceptable to the Indian society. And in a world where women are breaking stereotypes, these shows, these serials portray women that are so out of place that for some reason the Indian mind has become a junk. And no longer does the new Indian woman identify with what is being shown to a normal Indian family on telly. And we are here discussing why this happens. So here we are with the ladies. Let me introduce them to you. We have Supriya, we have Sumi, we have Shreya and Manushi. And they've logged in all the way from India. And we're going to talk to them about their favorite show. They are fans. They're part of the Shaki family, they call themselves, the Shaurya and Anokhi or Anokhi Ki Kahani family. And they are fans of the show because this show is a different one. This show is breaking this stereotype, not caring about what the rest of the shows on the telly are really portraying. And it's talking to them. The show is talking to them. So let's talk about what the show did this week, again, in our weekly roundup for what happened in the show. And then we'll talk about a very important topic. Why, and the topic for this week is, why is being middle class shown so toxic in Indian series, in Indian serials? So let's start with Shreya. Shreya, you know what happened this week. Let's get a brief lowdown, 30,000 feet, 2-minute lowdown on what really transpired this week on the show.
So this week can be divided broadly into three main categories. One is Bubbly finally standing up for with to Vineet, and protecting her sister. Finally, like, she's getting
And,
into
and
that
and we
origin.
had a very good discussion on domestic
Yeah, sure.
violence last week. So if you people, if our listeners haven't had the chance to listen to this discussion, it's on our Instagram, it's on our Facebook, it's on our YouTube, and it's also available on a podcast for a download.
Sure. Then the second half was finding Shaurya, like, finding Nemo, the same way finding Shaurya. So the chase of, finding Shaurya and his kidnappers has finally, taken the pace. And the third thing was, why wasn't Anoki crying a lot? And now that she's, now that she finally knows Shaurya has been missing, and now she's, getting in that Jugni mode, like, back into the fighter mode. So we can see her, getting into that action heroine kind of mode, and which we all love, the badass queen, finding her man, like fighting for her man. So we are looking forward to that.
That is amazing. So this is how this woman is different, and this is what we love about her, the fact that she doesn't just sit there and cry and wait for somebody else to help her. She does it all by herself, and she's not your quintessential Indian TV film female lead who would sit there, cry. She believes in doing things herself, she helps herself, and she also stands up for herself. And that's what we absolutely identify with as modern Indian South Asian women, don't we? Right?
Yes.
So perfect.
Sure.
So let's go round robin on different aspects of the show this week. And let me start with Supriya. Supriya, round robining here. This aspect of this aspect of the fact that physical abuse is, of course, one aspect of domestic violence. This constant mental abuse. Now, I wouldn't having an abusive family is crazy. I mean, it's not that only Bubbly is being a victim of domestic abuse. Kanchan is a victim of domestic abuse.
Yes.
The fact that she and Gayatri both have to deal with a very controlling Devi, that is domestic abuse. The fact that entire family has to deal with Devi and Tej Sabharwal's regressive attitude and thought, the fact that you have to live with people who are threatening you all the time, that if you do not conform to their standards of living or their way of living, you will face some kind of consequence. Isn't that abuse as well?
Yes, absolutely. And that was brought out very beautifully this week. And I did bring that out. When Kanchan tells Yash that, I got courage from Bubbly, that I can stand up now. So it was very beautifully, subtly brought out that she was being abused by two things. One, by Devi's power, and the second, by the conditioning of the society, where the society expected her to adjust in the marriage and keep the marriage floating despite the thorns, despite her being made to feel inferior, and being made to say that she's not educated enough or she's not equal enough to Yash. So that was a amazing point, that I really felt was brought out this week.
Beautiful. So then again, I think not only did she realize that she needs to stand up for herself, but she also got a lot of power from firstly Bubbly taking a stand, and secondly Anoki being the catalyst in this entire process.
Yes,
absolutely.
Yeah, so that also helped. Yeah, that also helped.
Sorry, say it again.
I said Anoki being a catalyst also helped. And I think
but yet she doesn't know she doesn't know the decisions that Anoki has taken, because Anoki hasn't spoken to her about her own decisions, right? She hasn't spoken about the problems that she's had with taking a stance yet. And I don't know how that will pan out yet, because that hasn't been spoken to, but I'm pretty sure Anoki will talk it out with Shaurya before they take it anywhere. Having said that, the fact that she saw Bubbly being beaten the way she was, that physical abuse, And then she decided that she'd already taken a stand with Yash, and she was taking it out in another way. She was taking her anger out by spending money. That's her way of dealing with her angst. And then she decides that she's going to do whatever she's going to do. She's not going to listen to them if they want her coming. She's not the puppet that they send her away and now they want her coming back. So she's kind of defying them in her own way by not listening to them. But she's also kind of this is her way of taking a stand for herself. So I'm wondering what else she will do. She's in that mode right now. So she's turning rebel. So I don't know how far she'll go with that. But having said that, yes, that is abuse. That emotional abuse has far greater impact than physical abuse. Physical abuse is, of course, it's far-reaching. It stays with you for a very long time. But emotional abuse is crazy. It has far-reaching impact too. So Sumi, this entire we spoke about it last week too, but this very uncanny relationship that Asta and Devi have seemed to develop. What do you think about that? It kind of evolved this week.
One aspect was it as being mothers, like however bad mother Devi is, she is still a mother to Shaurya. And as a mother, I would, in a way, understand that constant fear and kind of terror that a mother goes through when the child is missing. So that, I think that is the only place of similarity between Devi and Astha. I mean, if I cannot see a bonding between them, because Astha is Devi's nemesis. The minute Astha enters, Devi's control and reign will completely shut down, and she knows that. That is Devi's biggest beef with even Anokhi, because she fears if Anokhi enters the Sabharwal mansion, it will somehow lead to Astha's entry, and that is her biggest threat. I mean, she's really scared of it. So this starting me, I think she was just trying to have a bond with Astha, probably because she realized Shaurya is going to flip on her when he comes back. So to have somebody supporting her and maybe, trying to pacify Shaurya, Devi did what she did, because of the feeling of motherhood, and she loves you, that she's trying to get Astha to her side just for that point only. But obviously she's not somebody who would forget her colors. And the minute, Anokhi entered today, she actually showed who she is, and, she's not going to listen to Astha. I mean, she clearly told Astha that please be quiet in my house. Again, she's back to where she always is, So that was a farce that she created, Devi. Astha may genuinely feel sorry for Devi, but I don't think Devi has in her capacity to feel sorry for Astha ever. Because, she's the one who is, I don't think she will be an ally.
What I really find confusing is is Devi a player or is she getting played? I really don't get it. At some point in time, she's playing everybody. She's a manipulator. And then she suddenly gets manipulated by Shagun? How? I didn't understand that character graph at all. I did not get that play at all. Manushi, do you want to say something about that?
Yeah. So what I think about this whole dynamics is Devi is the master player of it all. Okay. And about her being Shaurya's mother, I think she takes that as a title of honor or as some trophy that she wants to bestow on her own self every day. That, yes, I'm Shaurya's mother. Yes, I'm Shaurya's mother. But with Devi and Astha's dynamics, I think Devi is a person who can never empathize with anybody. Even when Shaurya was missing, she was concerned that what if he would flip back at her? That was eating her raw every minute. She was thinking that Shaurya kyun and all the ruckus that she created. Because she knows Shaurya has literally gone berserk and he's not going to trust on Devi again. Yes, he will respect her till some extent, for all the curse that she has, shown on him, but Shaurya has broken off the shackle. And Astha and Devi dynamics, I think Devi is somebody who will never care about not just Astha, anybody. For her power is a supremacy. It's like she has to have that power to breathe. Like that power is everything for her. That, she needs that power for every thing in that house, be it controlling Kanchan, or be it controlling Asta, or be it controlling Shaurya, or anybody for that matter. And Tej is the master player of it all. Like, he has the latch to control Devi, and I think that's really funny as per me.
But he couldn't control her today, right? You saw that he was
could,
trying.
because Devi has been like that. She never likes to be controlled even by Tej, for that matter.
What do you think? What do you think about that, Shreya?
So what happens is, like, I think Shagun at the end knows Devi cares about Shaurya, and she's really insecure that what if because of Shaurya, Devi eventually accepts Anokhi as her daughter-in-law. So she's trying to poison her against Anokhi's morals. You know, that she's a gold digger, or maybe she's not, like, she's of loose character or questionable character or something like that. So maybe that's her play, that because she feels insecure that maybe eventually Devi will have to accept Anokhi as her daughter-in-law. Second, what I think is Tej and Devi has this. I think they have the best couple relationship in this entire show. Sorry to be the voice of unpopular opinions, but they have, like, they troll each other. Like, Devi would, seduce Tej in front of everyone. She'd be like, like, she has like 100, like, she'll go 100 above decibel when talking with everyone else, but when she talks to Tej, she'll be like, she'll be very soft and like gentle. Oh my god, like, she'll do, get those, womanly plays together. She'll try to calm Tej down, because she knows that he holds the purse. Still, he is the man of the house, and she's that manipulative woman who knows that her husband is an alpha, but she's the smart one. Like, she's like Cleopatra, if you would agree to that assessment.
I love I love that equivalence that you just created. Oh my god, you're getting my mind working in that one. God. So Supriya, you want to say something?
So you won't believe it if I say that Devi is also abused.
Let's talk about that. That's incisive. Let's talk about that.
Because why I feel Devi is abused is Tej has her under the control. So when some weak woman is inferior, the only way she could show up is through her power control. Through the power dynamics of the household.
Right. Psychologically, that makes sense. If somebody is controlling somebody else, they have been themselves controlled through childhood or their youth. You're right.
Yes. And the second insecurity which Tej might have used is her childlessness. A barrenness, which is a big stigma in the society.
For a woman.
For a woman. So she is latched on to Shaurya, who is the main heir of the whole kingdom, who is smart, who is intelligent, who is the heir, who can run the kingdom. So Devi knows that Shaurya being the kingpin after Tej, if she has Shaurya on her side, her power dynamics will not be disturbed. And that is when she started cultivating Shaurya. But at the end of it, she is a mother too. So however opportunistic or power controlled women are, motherhood is also there somewhere. She's still selfish, but she's still a mother. So the dynamics between Asta and Devi are two-pronged. One is that of a mother who is scared to lose that control. The second is a genuine fear that she will lose a son because son will attach himself to the biological mother, which happens to many adoptive women across the globe. Many adoptive parents, they are very scared. They don't even want to reveal. So it's a two-pronged dynamics which are happening, and it's very interesting the way they're showing it out. And it's not an easy concept. It's not a very easy thing to show, but then yes, they are doing
Actually, it's been shown pretty well, because you see that conflict in her. She's not really a mother, yet she's posing to be a mother, and she's really acted extremely well. You have to give it to Alka Badola, the way she portrays her emotions. She's a very selfish woman because she's self-centered, right? And she portrays that very well. She does, that emotion doesn't come, that motherhood emotion doesn't come easily to her, so she's really OTT with her emotions. She's melodramatic, whereas Asta is controlled, because that emotion is her real. So you can see that, you can see the real versus affected emotion on display, the two of them together.
Asta is controlled because she's secure.
Totally.
And
she's secure in her emotion. Also, she let her son go because she knows that he's my son. He'll come back to me. Whatever happens, he's not going anywhere. Nobody can take my son away from him. Even if he hates me, there's still emotion.
Yes,
even hatred is emotion, right, for her. And even if he hates it, she takes it as a positive because there's still emotion attached. And for Devi, even the love is not enough, because she is not sure how long the love will last, because she's scared the truth will come out. It's not finite enough. Even the finite is not finite enough for Devi, because she's scared that her lies will come out, and she's always scared for the lies. And now, for some reason, the lies have started coming out with Anokhi's entrance, and that is what is bothering her most. So I think we got the summary right. I think the last scene of the week was the most amazingly executed scene of the week. I absolutely loved not only the way Debatma executed the scene. I entirely loved that entire scene. What do you think about it? Who wants to take it, Sumi?
Yes, it was a brilliant scene. Something which is a very admirable quality of Anokhi is she always says her points, but she does it in a very respectful manner. There is not a line of disrespect that she crosses. She does not raise her voice. She does not shout or scream or go over dramatic. She remains calm, poised, but she says it very clearly, so that the person has absolutely no misconception of what she's trying to say.
But she said that she was so respectful to her, and she put her in her place. She called her her mother.
Yes, and if somebody else would have been like, if they show an Indian television on dramatic effect, they would take the money and just throw it in the air, or they would do stuff like that. She has no tantrums as such. She just took it. And best part is, the best part is Devi gave that money as a price of her love, price for her love or care or attention or whatever she wanted to call it. But Anokhi took out the photo of Shaurya's photo, and she rotated it, like, to ward off the evil eye. So she turned a very disrespectful, very negative emotion into a very powerful one, spiritually as well as positively. Like, she said, okay, you give the money, and it's not the cost of my love, it is the cost of clearing of your misconception. I think it was one of the most
powerful scenes,
remarkable scene I've seen in Indian television, because I did not see that coming at all. And I was like,
I did not see it coming. It was so powerfully written. Whoever wrote it, you have to give it to them. And it was executed so well. And that look on Asta's face, you can see her body lift and her face. I mean, you saw her pride. It was so beautifully done. She didn't know what Anokhi was doing. And the moment she realized what Anokhi did, you saw her body lift with pride, that this is my girl,
And the same contrast to Shagun, because Shagun was feeling proud of the fact that she managed to instigate Devi against Anokhi. But the way it happened,
Devi did not know what hit her.
Devi, even Shagun did not expect her Anokhi to rise like that. It's like a clear victory of Anokhi over every plan of theirs. It's like she slapped them without raising a hand.
Nothing.
It was so beautiful.
And even Shan did not know what hit him. And then he was like, okay, this is because they don't understand. This might be the first time that everybody in the room understood what Shaurya sees in Anokhi.
A girl who fights for her rights and who is different from everybody else. I think that two summary of the sentences right there for Anokhi.
And even, I mean, of course, this Gayatri has no dialogue, but her expressions are like, it's like she's a piece of furniture over there. Like she has like one line in 3 episodes right now, but her expression also kind of changed for the first time in like three episodes, literally. But honestly, even Tej's expression was like, okay, this is not a girl we will take lightly now, because she was smart enough to convert that situation into something nobody could have, even viewers couldn't have thought that
Exactly.
this would happen.
She won that round so effortlessly and so nice. I think that was this inspirational scene, learn how to fight your battles like Anokhi, without raising your voice, without losing your calm, but stay up. And I mean, I would like to behave like that in such situation.
Totally. That scene was so inspirational. So let's now move on to the most important topic of discussion. Why? So this entire thing was when she goes and she sees Anokhi dance, Shagun, she sees Kanchan dance. Her first expression, and so does Devi. Devi demeans Anokhi. She demeans Gayatri. She demeans. Their whole business plan is to get middle-class girls and then be able to rule over middle-class girls because they listen to them. What is this entire story with middle-class girls? Why are middle-class girls looked down upon in Indian society? And why, especially in Indian serials, are they demeaned like this? Why are they supposed to be inferior people? Could we start with Supriya?
Okay, so we need to understand the conditioning. So primarily the conditioning of the middle class society is...
Can you be a little louder for me, please?
Yeah, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
So the primary conditioning of the middle class society is...
Camera.
That the girls have to be married off. So even if they're educated, the education is meant for marriage. Because if they are educating their girls at least to a graduate level or postgraduate level, they will get a very good guy, maybe from US, from America. So this is the primary conditioning number 1. And the second conditioning is like, if you are married, then you have to adjust somehow or other. So the primary conditions that they look at, family is good, elite, academic, highly business class. What more do you need? They don't think about the girl's identity. They don't think about the girl's dreams. They don't think about the girl's self, this thing. So this is a general conditioning which happens in and around the society. And there is a divide between them and the rich class. So that is what is being shown in the series, very more often than not. So it's not like, I have seen it personally myself across the small towns, across the cities, and I've seen it in my families too. So I can continue, but then if you want me to stop. Hi, Scott.
Scotty, hello.
Hello, everyone. I'm sorry to interrupt. What were we talking about?
Not at all. We've been missing you. How's your cold?
Hi, Scott.
It's
Did
not
you catch
great.
up with Milson Boons yet?
No, I have not yet caught up with Milson Boone, but that's going to happen. I promise.
Sure.
I promise. My cold. Hello, Sumi. Hello. Hello, Supriya.
Hi,
hello.
Scott.
I apologize for butting in. So please continue. I want to hear this interesting conversation. So let's get back to where you were.
Yeah, so I was talking about the middle class. So, and interestingly enough, as I was talking to Chandra, I myself faced it in school. So in my school, when I was a middle class and I had friends from very high rich class, there was this restaurant joint called Nirula's. I used to go only for patties. And then they said, oh, you go only for patties. How can you go only for such small snacks? Nirula's offers pizzas, offers so many things. You don't even know what this is. This is the kind of ridicule, these rich people have over the middle class. But then it's it's how you stand up. So I stood up to them. I said, yes, I know only this much and I am proud of it. So then they backed up. But then this happens in reality. So what I'm saying is what the shows show is not unreal or surreal. It does happen in the society. And again, there is a distinction between elite academic class versus business class versus low middle class. So there are a lot of class distinctions happening there.
Okay, so what do you think? What do you think, Sumi? Why does this hatred towards middle class girls exist in Indian television, and why are they looked down upon?
Actually, I think I have a slightly different point of view. I think there are two layers to it. One layer is they try to reinstate the belief that middle class is not good enough, because the majority of the audience of Indian television generally is middle class, like the lower middle class, the middle class, the upper middle class. So when you say this narrative, you are kind of making this aspirational for the middle class who's watching it, who is saying that, oh, I want to achieve that upper status in the society, because I don't want to be here anymore. It's like if you go to a luxury car store and somebody tells you that, I'm sorry, you cannot buy the car because you cannot afford it or you are not good enough. It gives me a goal that, oh, okay, 10 years down the line, I am going to come back to this store and I am going to buy this. So there is a layer of making the TV shows aspirational for the middle class. Then there is a second layer of degrading it, defaming it further, so that, so when antagonists talk about middle class in such derogatory way, what it does to middle class is it makes them more inclined towards the protagonist. It makes you more invested. So when a protagonist fights with the antagonist and the battle is raging on, a middle class person thinks it's my personal battle because she just insulted me 5 episodes back. So you are more invested in the story because they're selling the story to majority of the middle class. The people who are watching TV, they are invested in the stories. So it's like they show what sells more.
Do you agree with
that's
her,
what I think?
I agree with Sumi. Okay, I'll tell you what, it's like capitalizing on a demography. Middle class 40s aunties, and they usually watch shows, and it's not just Indian shows, by the way, it's all across South Asian countries, be it Pakistani, Bangladeshi, even Korean, Turkish, every society, every TV shows you go, you'll find these themes, because these are like, okay, all TV shows are meant for certain demography, we know, and they usually target the middle class, which is the most, most profitable for them, because they are the one who's going to watch TV every day at 9 o'clock. The rich will, probably be sitting in a theater somewhere, watching, like, though they are not going to they are not going to watch TV shows. That is not the demographic. So I think they are actually, they are discriminating against the rich. So if you look at it from a perspective, like from the 90s, when this Indian TV daily show series thing started, Ekta Kapoor was the one who brought this, middle class thing. Because I remember in the 90s and 2000, there was not this middle class thing or such shows existed. Like there were like Tulsi, Parvati, Kumkum, Prerna, every bahu is middle class. Okay, so this middle class thing started with Ekta Kapoor, and everyone has now catched on to that formula. So no one is trying to do anything different. They all want that middle class formula to happen again, because that's what makes your show relatable to the audiences. Plus, so I'll tell you what the best way to deal with it. So now we discuss the problem. The best way to deal with it would be like something that Sarabhai versus Sarabhai did. So I don't think you and Scott would know it, but Sarabhai versus Sarabhai is an Indian sitcom, which is a very popular. It's like Friends level popular in India. So they also have that middle class stereotype, that a middle class girl from middle class would be what, unhygienic. She would wear, nighties and go out. She wouldn't care about her dressing. She wouldn't keep her home clean. She would like bargain a lot. While they also take pot shot at the high class and elites. Like they are very hypocritical. They would go on unshan with, on cocktails, unshan with cocktails and such things. So the best thing would be take pot shots with every class. Stop this class divide. Like make shows for the rich, make shows for the classes, make shows for the class masses. And if we in real life, and all these shows are exaggerated, like no rich people would talk and openly insult a middle class person. Like if you're an elite, if you want to insult someone, you would do it subtly. You wouldn't do dialogue bazi. That's for sure. You'll be very subtle with your thing, like, oh, acha, or something like that. It would be an expression of, disgust or something. It wouldn't be that dialogue bazi, oh, ho, you're from, middle class and such things. So I think this is just capitalizing on the market, and the formula has been overstretched now, and it needs upgrade.
Sure.
So I just disagree here in the demographics. If we talk about 40s, I know many of my colleagues, many of my friends don't even watch Indian shows, and we all come from middle class. It's also about the eliteness. It's also about the educational background here. So when I say the class divide, I'm not just talking about, so in middle class also there's a class divide between elite middle class and the lower middle class and an academic middle class. So when I talk about elite and academics, you won't get them to watch such shows. You won't have them watching such shows. They'll be mostly into Prime and Netflix, but they'll rarely watch shows on TV. But I would also like to re-emphasize that in 80s and 90s, it was not like this. I am a 80s kid. I'm a Doordarshan kid. No, many of these, they may not have seen Doordarshan shows, but I was a Doordarshan kid. We had shows like Udaan, which talked about journey of a police woman, how she became a police officer. We had shows like where women enlisted themselves in Navy, and they showed their journey. We had shows like...
Supriya, are you telling me that the shows devolved themselves? The women in the shows devolved themselves into the state where they are now wearing makeup and all that jewelry and sleeping?
Yes. And that is
and that happened because of people like Ekta Kapoor. They commercialized this kind of mind-numbing behavior for women.
Yes. We had serials like, you would believe it, we had serials like Tara in CTV, who was an independent woman who did not care about divorce. All she wanted was her independence, her identity. We had Banegi Apni Baat. We had shows like that, which talked about, like in the beginning when you mentioned about stereotyping of women. And it is a very unfortunate thing, being a person who has seen from 70s, 80s to till now. I have seen much more progressive shows in my earlier days, much more progressive shows, which you could relate to, where women were stronger, women used to kick out, women had their own identity than the shows which are showing. So Ekta Kapoor, so I agree with Sumi and Shreya in that sense, that Ekta Kapoor did bring in commercialization there, and she did bring in one formula number one, saying, that Indian women means Indian values. Yes. So small towns. So basically why it works is in small towns, in the rural areas, in your, even in the urban areas, there are certain pockets which are traditional pockets. So there, this kind of formula number one works. And this rule works. And all these TRPs is primarily coming from such of these pockets, but not from the elite pockets.
I'd like to jump in, Miral, here. Like, as Supriya said, the show Tara, I was named after a character from that show. She'd know it, Shreya. Because at that time, that show had a popular character named Tara. And I think everyone in the 90s named their daughters Tara after that character, Shreya after that character. Because that's what I'm saying. My mom used to watch it in the 80s and 90s. She has stopped watching it since 20 years. My mom doesn't watch TV. And she would like tell me, why are you watching this stuff? Like, why are you wasting your time? Read books instead. So that the devaluation, the degradation, and the the generation of Indian television is unbelievable. We used to have shows like Army, like they had Shah Rukh Khan and Irfan Khan acting in those soaps. We had Anurag Kashyap directing that show. We had Sham Benegal type of level of direction in that shows. So the level of direction, the level of screenplay writing, the level of every technical aspect has gone down dramatically. Like 20 years ago, there was a show called Tamas in 70s. Sorry, I'm mistaken, Tamas, which had Om Puri in it. It was based on partition. Like I have not seen such level of production in Indian television since like many years. Like only high production show which happened recently was Mahabharat maybe, and that too because it's a mythological show. Otherwise, the level of production also has gone down a bit. Like the quality of every production has gone dramatically down.
You wanted to say something, Sumi?
Yes, I was just saying I agree with both of them actually. So the 80s and 70s, 80s, even the 90s shows were much more realistic to our intelligence. Actually, we used to connect with it more. They were crisp, short, like crisp writing, no drama, no over dramatic influences, nothing like that. It was crisp, clear, with protagonists, both male and female, having a clear viewpoint, and there is no there's antagonist here. What happens in the shows, there is always that one person whose only job in life is to create mess for the protagonist. That whole concept was not there before. People used to live their own lives in the family. You have joint family shows. There's some level of discontentment, but it was not to the level of infusion that is there today. So definitely there has been a degradation, and I think because there was a sudden outburst of television audience in the 2000s, because of it reached to a lot more people than before. That only Doordarshan was there, only few shows used to come, just like 1 hour in a day. Now it has like 24/7
process.
24/7. It has reached every rural area. So if you take the majority, so they are catering to the majority. But in that majority, we are not there. We are left behind because we don't understand that, those shows anymore.
Plus, not to forget, there's a limited show. They used to come bi-weekly or once a week. The quality, that's why, was maintained throughout, and it was limited period. It wasn't like going on banking on the TRP ratings or anything.
I don't understand how shows can go on for 12 years and still have a credible story to tell. But Scott, you wanted to say something. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I did. And this is really interesting, but I'm having a difficult time understanding exactly what you're saying, because from my experience, this idea of the middle class and putting down the middle class from a Western perspective, it's a little different. It doesn't have that sexist element that I'm picking up.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that this is a constant in Western TVs and movies, but there's definitely this strain of films and storytelling where the middle class, whether he's the protagonist or an antagonist, he's often an antagonist. He's trying to go above his station. He's trying to become richer, become more powerful, get into that next level socioeconomically. And I'm the one example that comes to mind is The Talented Mr. Ripley. And I don't know if any of you have seen that movie, but that's the classic example of putting down that lower middle class or even middle class antagonist, because he's upsetting the order of things so much so that he kills people. So for me, if you could, there seems to be a gap between what I'm talking about and what you're talking about. Am I misreading that, or are they the same thing, but just from a different perspective? Help me understand.
Why don't you take this question, Supriya?
Two aspects to it, Scott. What I felt is, many of these producers, they also wanted to show two aspects. One is Pride and Prejudice type, where, Darcy is a rich man, and then Elizabeth is a middle class. She's looked down upon, that sexist remarks are there, and then Darcy improves. So if you see Gul openly admits that most of my shows I try to ape or imitate the Pride and Prejudice kind of a plot without really understanding what that plot was about. That is one aspect. The second aspect is why there is a lot of sexism here is because it's easier to put down a woman than a man, especially when it comes to a marriage and a family structure. Because a woman is more about family, more about the self-respect, more about the respect of the family and surroundings and maintaining the marriage. So it's easier to put them down. So the writers also find that easy to put that and wave it into the plot, and they wave that into the plot. So there is an inbuilt sexism there. And even if you go like for example, I'll give you my example. I'm a single person. I've been told by many people that you're a rebel. That's the first thing which has been told to me.
Wait, you've been told what?
I'm a rebel.
She's a rebel.
Rebel. Okay.
I'm a rebel because I've rebelled and I've preferred to stay single. So it's easier to put down women than men. So it does happen. So that is why what writers do is they just bring in the reality, but they don't bring in the solution. They bring in the problems, but they don't build in the solution. And that is where we are lacking.
Okay, so if I'm understanding correctly, you're saying the main thing I'm hearing from you, Supriya, is that it's lazy. There's a lazy quality to the writing. It's just easy to put down women. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. It's easy to put down women because you see that.
Okay, so help me understand how I'm still trying to figure out how similar or different they are in the West and in India, because what I'm feeling in the West is, and again, it's not everywhere, it's not all the time, but what I'm feeling is that, and we were talking a little bit about the Pride and Prejudice model, but keeping people down so that we keep just a small number of people at the top. How is the sexist angle of it? Expand on that for me. Expand on that sexist angle, and how are they the same? How are they part of the same problem, or are they?
Yeah, so basically in the Western, if you're only looking at economics of it, but here you're also looking at the gender divide of it. So many traditional families and conservative families, they don't want, the stereotyping of the girls, that the girls to be good principals. They want the girls, if girls have families and marriages. So there is that gender divide also. So that is why you are seeing both interjuxed together or intertwined together, because that gender divide and the economics of it. Because believe it or not, most of the families still wish that their daughter gets married. And if the daughter is unmarried, the kind of comments they get, the kind of remarks they get is unbelievable.
And that doesn't surprise me at all, given how many movies and TV talk about just get the girl married. Like I understand, but how is that a threat to the elites? I guess that's the best way for me to ask that question. How is that a threat to the elites? You not getting married or you ascending into the middle class? How is that a threat?
Because of you getting into their space. Do you understand how it's just like it's another form of racism, how if you've been to a good school, you've been to an elite school, you don't want the have-nots to be with the haves. You don't want people who don't have access to good education to come into.
So we focus on the marriage. We focus on the marriage so we don't have that competition at the top.
It's just like, hey, this is my club. I'm in Harvard Club, and hey, I don't want you to have access to my club because you don't belong here. It's apartheid. So you're middle class. Don't come into my class. I'm elite.
But I would like to say one more thing. Sorry. But as Sumi and Shreya pointed out correctly, it is over-exaggerated also in Indian shows. Primarily to get the sympathy of the middle class. Primarily to get the sympathy of the women. Oh, that poor girl, she's getting tortured. What will happen next? What will happen to her?
So
Why
sad.
is it
Why would
happening
they
to
do
her?
it to women? Why would they make women so bichari? Why is a woman bichari? Why the hell is the woman bichari?
Because men don't watch these shows. It's the demographics again. It's the women who are watching this show. So I'll give it to Shreya and Sumi. They can explain.
But how many women appreciate it? We don't appreciate it. We love the Anokhi type, and we loved what Anokhi did yesterday. We love that.
Okay.
We don't love, if Anokhi had been a bichari and cried, we would have hated it.
Okay, so we want to go first?
Yeah, go Shreya. Who wants to talk? Sorry.
Maybe Sumi wants to go first.
Sumi, go.
Okay, yeah, I'll go. So yeah, Mirar, so that is what I said. These shows, they don't cater to our interests. That is the whole reason. That is why we don't watch these shows. Because as independent women, as educated women who have had the privilege of a family, who do not put societal pressures on you, and also of being strength, of having strength in yourself, like your belief. I have that belief that I can do whatever I want. Like as Supriya said, she believes she can do whatever she wants. For women like us to watch a bichari woman is kind of idiotic. Like, why are you suffering through it? Just get out of it. Like, just say no and go out of it. But the majority audience who are there sitting in the rural areas or the socio-economic brackets, they can relate to it because somewhere down the line, somewhere in their lives, they have seen it. If not with them, some of their friends or somewhere in the family, it is something they relate to. And then that fight becomes their...
But time out right there. If they don't know the possibilities, they're always going to be in that vortex of relating to it forever. If they don't know that there is a possibility outside of it, I've worked with women all my life. If they don't know there's a possibility, they don't know there's a possibility of them coming out of it. A lot of women stay in that pit of no possibilities because 99% of the time they don't know that they have a chance.
Exactly. So that is why this show in particular, if you talk about it, it shows both the facets. It shows a woman like Bubbly, who is under such torture, abuse, but she still stays in it because of the societal pressures of what the society will think, of what the parents will think, how will she live her life. She's not financially independent. At the same time, you have a woman like Anokhi who fights the same societal pressures, but she goes ahead. So they are showing a classic distinction. So in India, we shows more on the perspective of Bubbly. But if we start showing more on Anokhi's point of view, things will start making a change because then you are going to root for Anokhi.
Exactly. So why do these regressive shows still get so much viewership?
Okay.
So again, as a statistician, I have a lot of doubts on the TRPs because I have worked with the TRP data, Nielsen data.
I agree with you totally. We have gone down this TRP drain so many times. These TRP numbers do not make any sense at all. These are...
Don't get her started. Come down off the TRP ledge. I know it.
Okay,
I know. You're right. You're right. It's ridiculous.
These numbers do not make sense. But
You're
tell
right.
me that we still are talking about the middle class and this entire story of the bichari ladki from the Indian middle class has gone too far. Now, I'll tell you from experience that in America, we've spent the last 10 years dealing with a lot of attacks on women. And what we've learned, the reasons, and being activists ourselves, and Scott, we've done this a lot. We've dealt with a lot of names given to women. One fine day we called, good names, and we called bad names. And what we did with those bad names was we converted the meanings of the bad names into good names. And we became pros at it after a while. We also became pros at really changing the way the world looked at us as women. And the attacks on women were so big because our rights went away in certain states. Our rights to exist went away in certain states. Our basic human rights went away in certain states. The attacks were monumental because however much the world looks up to America, our rights were held up by several people. By just changing a few laws here and there, our rights to even get healthcare were taken away. Basic healthcare were taken away. So we fought, and what we started were several basic measures to change the way these people were dealing with women. I mean, literally, if you guys have watched Handmaid's Tale, we were literally going there. We were so scared. Remember Women March? Every year we did the Women March. The Women's March was that monumental for us, for our rights. And Scott would tell you how scary those days were. Our rights were really going away. So
not because of the marching,
times.
Not because of the marching, but because of what was doing to cause the march. I just want to be clear about that.
Absolutely. And we had men like Scott stand up for us. I mean, we're lucky to be living in a country where so many men believe are feminists. We're lucky to be living in a country where so many men stood by us. They fought for our rights, and so many of them came forward. So any woman who can have a voice was called a nasty woman. There were other names given to women. Fundamentally, what we did, we turned that name around. Nasty woman is a badge of honor now. So we turned that around into t-shirts. Generations of women wearing t-shirts called nasty women. Nasty woman is a good word. We wear it like a badge of honor. And we got mugs, and we actually created merchandise around nasty women. So I was seriously thinking, how do you turn this middle-class woman around into a badge of honor? Change people's perception around. If somebody's gone around and used middle class as a derogatory term, how do you change it around into a good term? How do you change it around into somebody who's spunky, somebody like Anoki, somebody who can really give it back, somebody which is not derogatory anymore, somebody who's just the opposite of what they mean it is? Because you got to change the perception. How do you completely turn it on its head, like we turn nasty women on its head? That's one part. Secondly, what we also did very successfully was we grabbed the wallet. Companies, sponsors, and corporations that supported narratives that were anti-women, we stopped spending money with them as a country. It all happened on Microsoft Excel. We passed around, as women in this country, we passed around an Excel sheet amongst each other. The Women's March did it. Literally, this march did it. We passed around, we had an Excel sheet that we kept updating, and we passed around that Excel sheet, and us individually stopped spending money with those brands. We didn't buy it. Those brands, women stopped buying those brands. We just decided we're not going to buy, for example, we're not going to buy this brand milk. They went out of business because they were supporting anti-women narrative. They went out of business. So they had to change their narrative. A lot of stores had to throw out Mr. Trump's business if they had to stay in business. This is how you grab your wallet. So these are things that we did. I'm just giving you examples of what we did to change the narrative of people to suit our narrative, to support women's rights, to talk nicely to us. Talk nicely to us. You're going to call us nasty women? We're fine with it. Nasty women is a good word from this day on. You want to change the meaning of the word. How are you guys going to change the meaning of middle class? Shreya?
Okay. So starting with, the thing was, the middle class had an image in ITV society, in ITV world. Like the middle class girls would always wear salwar kameez, would go to a good college, would be a housewife, be a certain good mother, good something like that. So because of Anokhi, now people are realizing that women can be different. Like women can wear jeans and can wear kurti and can wear sari, and a woman can have different shapes. And that is a middle class woman. So she's from Kapurthala. Kapurthala is a 2-tier city of India. So the progression that they showed of her dressing, that she was wearing only, desi salwar suit. Then she progressed and she started wearing appropriate clothing. Like when she went for a date, she wear a good good one-piece dress. When she went to Goa, she wore jeans. When she wore tunic tops. It wasn't like, oh my God, oh my God. A country used to seeing women, wearing heavy jewelry and going to sleep with that. It's a welcome change. So first is dressing. Be it superficial, but dressing is important to show a change in Indian society. Second was
At least she's not going to bed wearing jewelry, man. What the hell is that in Indian serials? How do women go to bed wearing like everything?
Wait, what?
We did a cartoon about it once.
Wait, do the women in the TV shows go to bed wearing jewelry?
Yes, I'll send
like a lot of.
I
really?
swear, we did an entire Instagram series on women going to bed wearing jewelries in Indian TV. It's on our Instagram. Scott, check it out,
dude. I don't. Okay, all right. I don't yell at me for not being on our Instagram. That was
hilarious because I remember Chandra was watching something and she's like, "What the hell is this? Why are they doing it? Why aren't they wearing night clothes? And they're wearing full jewelry and going to bed wearing."
Doesn't that hurt,
dude? Seriously.
Like if you roll around, doesn't your skin get caught and things get
logic is
air?
not
obviously their skin is made of steel.
Oh, okay.
No, logic is not their strong suit, Scott. It's okay. You should let that pass.
Wait, what's not my strong suit?
No, not yours. The writers and the makers of the shows, logic is not there.
Got it. Logic. Okay. No, okay. Is that a thing? Is that like a stereotype that like certain, or is it just some weird thing in TV?
It's just Indian TV. It's some kind of sanskari thing to wear jewelry to bed.
No.
Who wears jewelry to bed, dude?
No one wears it. No one is that rich. Even rich people are not that rich that they will wear jewelry. Please. So the first is the jewelry part and the dressing. Second is showing women grief. So what I noticed was in this week, Kanchan was going shopping. She went retail therapy to show her grief, to let loose her, to let her.
I would too. I do that all the time.
Same. I would do. Bubbly, Kanchan, and Anokhi were parting. Okay, and that's the perfect reaction, according to me, to let your grief out. In Indian TV shows, women just cry. When they're sad, they're programmed to cry.
No, whenever I break up, I go dancing. Don't you?
Oh, works.
I go dancing. I go to a disco. I dance the whole night.
What do you do when you break up? I'm not gonna say anymore.
What did you do last time you broke up with a girlfriend? I won't tell Gina, but you can talk.
Oh no, it's completely inappropriate for the show. It just all the wild things. I did all the wild things.
Oh no!
Oh
now
yes.
We know.
Oh yes.
Now we know.
And you know what? Gina. It was great. It was awesome.
Okay.
And I please, ladies, do all the wild things. Please do all the wild things. I want you to.
Yeah, so
or don't.
Special advisors do the wild things.
Yeah.
So Anokhi,
do it or don't. Go shopping. Do what you like. I'm not going to tell you just stay at home and cry. I'm not going to say that.
No one cries.
So basically, Shagun's shock was this: these middle class girls, they're doing un-middle class things like dancing and drinking. Yeah. Oh my God! Let me spike their drink. Okay, let me do something un-middle class to them.
No, that's the high class thing to do, to spike a drink. Like apparently everyone is a druggie. Everyone is druggie, and all high class people are druggie, and they're carrying drugs, rupees around. So they're spiking drinks.
That's not fair. Like not all high class people do drugs, but yeah, that's not fair. That's not a fair assumption. However, how un-middle class are they? They're not crying.
Exactly.
They're dancing.
Like she got out of an abusive relationship. How is she happy? How is she happy of getting out of an abusive relationship? She should just cry. That's against the rules.
She doesn't know. She doesn't know what's going on with them. But whatever.
Yeah. Okay, wait a minute. I got to tell you, I was catching up on the show, and I skipped ahead because you can do that with Shaurya or Anokhi. You can skip ahead and still be fine. But when they're sitting there
because we are updating you on everything. That's why.
Yeah, but you can still.
That way.
Yeah, but you can still skip ahead. You can. Anyway. What?
This week you can because there is no Shaurya. Next week he'll be back. You won't, huh?
All right, that's fair. But when they were sitting there on the rooftop, or outside, whatever, and they had talked about shopping. I was completely confused. I have to admit, I was confused. I didn't know what was going on. I understood that Babli and her husband broke up, and he was a jerk, so that was a good thing. But the whole shopping thing, I didn't understand that. And you're telling me now that that is a progressive way to explain that she was grieving and going.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't get it. I thought, what's the shop?
You
What?
didn't hear the glass ceiling shatter.
I
right?
did not.
Because
You're right. I did not. But that was cool.
women are
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
Women are
cool.
supposed to cry. They can't shop.
Man. Okay. Wow. I understand the whole I left my asshole husband, so, and I just feel good about it. Like, I get that. That part I understand. But the shopping was awesome part I didn't connect that dot. So okay.
Now you do.
Now, yeah.
What you
Thank
didn't
you.
know, what you didn't know, now you know.
Yeah, thank you. All right. I'm going back to listen.
Totally. Did you like the last? We were talking about the last scene when Devi gives Anoki money. Did you like that scene?
I thought when she said she gives her the money and then says, "Go away, now get out of our lives." I thought that was just typical Devi evil crazy. That's I really.
Crazy.
I don't. It's half the time I don't know what to think in this show. I really don't. It's like, what am I not getting? Is this some Indian thing that I'm just like the dumb white guy that doesn't get it? Like I just. So when she hands her the money, I was like, do you take it? Do you not take? Like, does she need the money? I don't know. So I just sit back and go, wow, this is crazy. That's what I thought.
Then did you?
I have a different context to the dressing pad if you would like me to.
Sure. Sure.
I wear a salwar kameez and I wear it with pride because salwar kameez does not define my thoughts. I feel comfortable in it, but I'm a modern woman. I'm totally modern in my thoughts. I'm totally modern. And this I got from my mother. She wore sari in 60s and went to US, traveled all over the world in a sari. She drank wine. She went with her colleagues. She did parties, but she was in a sari. She was proud of her dressing, but all she said, my thoughts need to be open. It does not matter what I dress. So if I want to turn my middle class mentality, it doesn't matter how I dress. It matters how I think.
I completely agree with her. Totally. Hey, dressing doesn't matter. I go around. I've lived here I've lived in America 25 years or whatever. I swear to God, I go out wearing my kurta. I wear whatever the hell I please. I really don't. Nobody really cares what you wear. It's how you turn up. It's ultimately the person you are. You need to be comfortable with the person you are. Having said that, we need to do something about this middle class. And I leave it to the fan club to come back to us with ideas and we'd help you execute. How do you convert this entire taboo of middle class girls into something positive? I gave you ideas. Now come back to us and how are you going to convert that taboo of middle class into something positive? What are you going to do about it? Are you going to make videos of
Are you going to make t-shirts?
Are you going to make t-shirts? What are you going to do about being middle class?
I live by one main motto, which my mother taught me. My parents taught me. You are you. I am I. That's it.
That's great. But you also need to take it out there and make sure that no other girl, no other woman, nobody else in this entire ecosystem that you operate in ever feels smaller because somebody calls her middle class. And that is the job that we are giving you today. Fan club, have fun. And
thank you.
So glad you guys could be with us on this panel. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Viral, for having us. Thanks, Scott, for being such a sweetheart.
Thank you so much. I learned a lot.
Next
Thank
week
you.
again. Lovely talking with you.
Thank you, Viral. Thank you, Scott. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.